Yo guys, Visionist Gen here, back with more Minecraft content. Today's episode number 10 will go into detail on the world itself, and more so the base, providing an update on the latest developments within my base and the world, where we're at in the world regards to endgame progress, and also any upcoming news or recent events that you should be aware of. So, on that note, let's get right into it. So first things first, just as a general overview, the world has progressed at such a great pace, exploring so many new biomes, finding new and many different items and resources. As a collector player and completionist like myself, I've made great progress towards collecting all of the different blocks, armor trims and armor sets, etc., which look amazing in both in my trophy room and also in my storage rooms, which will go a long way and I'll go over in this video. But also just generally, I've completed so many of the mid-game challenges that I've wanted to do for such a long time, such as Pillager Raids for totems, trial chambers, ancient cities, Woodland Mansions and more, which have all been more enjoyable than I ever could have imagined. But also the base itself has grown significantly, which is what I'm mainly going to go over in today's episode, as I've gone from having a very small mountain base up top with my friend to now having the start of basically a kingdom essentially, as you will see throughout the video. So what we'll do is we'll start right at the beginning where the bridge connects from the zoo and our original base, and then as it progresses I'll explain all of the build ideas, concepts and inspiration to all of the builds in my base, as well as the history of how we got to this stage in the world and why I've created each of these buildings, etc., as they all have their own character and their own purpose, as I believe that everything in my entire base is completely necessary and justified for having its own structure and so on. So starting with the windmill structure itself, this was the original building in this area. If you haven't seen my previous base update video on episode 5, this is where effectively I broke down the history of the world as part of my previous world update and also the base itself. And if you haven't seen that video, or you have, go check it out, because you'll see how much more of this world has progressed since the last update, adding nearly 20 new features and structures to my base, or now kingdom, as it's grown rapidly. But in summary, the windmill was the first structure in my entire base. Effectively what happened is we were all on top of this mountain. It was me and my friend originally at top of the mountain, which I'll go over in the video, and from there we eventually recruited more of our friends who wanted to join us on this journey to completing everything there is doing in Minecraft. And effectively what we then realized is the base we originally had was far too small and there was more room to explore and expand, which effectively allowed me to start building different concepts and ideas that I wanted to begin with, which was the first, the windmill, which was my original building in this section on the island, and effectively have expanded from there by adding in all sorts of different areas, such as my own house, a blacksmithing area which will contain anvils, furnaces and so on, as well as armor sets, and then an inn which it contains my trading hall, which I'll put in a future video for more details on a trading hall, how to create one and so on, and how I went about it, tips and tricks that I've learned along the way, because that was quite a confusing experience for the most part, trying to figure out the actual language of villagers and trying to understand how they all work, how you get different types of traders and so on, which will, like I said, I'll make in a separate video. But then as well as that, I also have the more essential things such as farms for trees, sugar canes, crops, you name it. I even have every different type of tree available to me in my own base, which the hardest one for me to find was a mangrove biome, and trying to get that sapling, because I really like the willow tree and the mango tree sort of style. I really think it's a cool feature to the base, but it actually took me a really long time to try and find a mangrove biome in this world. I could not believe how far I'd actually have to travel, and the main goal and the main sort of achievement that I want to accomplish in this world is trying not to use anything like the seed maps or the chunk base or anything like that to try and find me any unique structures, and trying to actually explore and benefit and sort of enjoy the experience and trying to find things naturally, remembering where you found them and then trying to prepare yourself to explore these things. This is all something I want to be able to do naturally, because I find that it just sort of ruins the fun. Almost feels like cheating, although it's not, of course, because you can do it in any way you want. But for me, fundamentally, exploring the world is just key and has to be done naturally, in my opinion, in order to understand the Minecraft lore even better. And again, like I said, I haven't played this game or survival in over 10 years, so it's all new to me, and trying to explore all of these new biomes, find new resources, new mobs even around the map is a really fun aspect of this game, something I really enjoy doing, and is why I sort of don't use those features, and also why I take more great pride in actually finding all of the things naturally, such as trial chambers, ancient cities and so on. But getting back to the base and the sort of exploration and how far I've expanded, I've even got buildings like a brewing sort of building where I've got wolves tamed in here, just separate as a separate entity for itself, to be more of a feature building, but it's somewhere I would go to outside of my base for brewing. And then as well as that, we have all sorts of different structures, such as a fishing hut where I would go and fish and store all of my fish in that separate area. Of course, I can be more efficient in the way that I built this base in terms of having things a bit more condensed and sort of closer by, but for the most part, when you have an elytra, getting to all of these separate buildings all spread out and just sort of expanded makes it more enjoyable. And also, again, because you have an elytra, it does not take long at all to sort of travel around my base, but also just makes makes it that much more enjoyable for an experience in this world, in trying to actually build separate buildings, utilize cool ideas and use inspiration from other YouTubers and so on that I've seen really cool concepts, and then want to adapt or build my own sort of style to things. That part of the game is really key and sort of one of the most enjoyable aspects of this game in my opinion, and something I've really enjoyed so far in this world. But again, getting back to what else is in the world, I have my own storage and trophy room. The trophy room is something I've really enjoyed doing. I'm going to make a separate guide and sort of separate video just summarizing exactly what's in here, but I've effectively created all different types of armor sets, including fire protection, a whole fire protection armor, whole blast protection armor, whole projectile protection armor, all of those different sets for iron, gold, diamond, and so on, as well as having a really cool storage room. Something I take great pride in. This is all off the top of my head. I just one day realized that chests were no longer going to cut it, and I wanted to start adding barrels and item stuffs all into my base. So effectively what I did is then just dug down in my base and just went off the sort of freestyled how I built that, and it turned out really, really well, and I really enjoyed that storage room, and it's something I would definitely recommend as sort of just a general tip. If you guys have big survival worlds and you're playing it for a long period of time, or even if a short period of time, adding in a storage room really early on massively allows you to become more efficient and also just more organized, and just generally having everything organized is a really underappreciated and underrated aspect of Minecraft. When you walk into another player's sort of base and you go into their chest and see everything's all just sort of clunked together, it just looks really bad, and also you have no idea what you're looking for or where everything is, and just adds more time, but also just mess. It just creates to chaos, or just leads to chaos, and just creates this unsatisfying feeling. So adding in all of these sort of trees and adding in organized features just makes the sort of base and itself and just the general aspect of playing this world so much more enjoyable in my own opinion. But then leading on, I've sort of added in all different types of trees, as you can see around the base, as well as my own library, and in this library is basically where I wanted to put my own enchanting area. I wanted to have a librarian in here to make it more like an actual library, and then having some sort of cool feature areas in here, as well as having my own enchanting room, rather than just having it in one section of my base and then just not really having anything cool about it. Means that it's just not that sort of fascinating and not that useful. Whereas if I have to leave my base and travel all the way over to my library, it just makes it that much more purposeful and also gives you some more ideas on what to build. And then also leading around here, I've got plenty of different build ideas I'm going to add, but in this area I wanted to add in my own little pig area, somewhere I could store pigs for if I wanted to get sort of pork chops and just farm them, and just generally to add in a cool unique section of my base, because I find that it just looks better when you fly around at nighttime and it's all lit up and you see all of these separate buildings all spread out. It's just really cool. But for the most part, I've then added in this ginormous lake, which you would not believe. If you want to download this seed, for sure you can check out that this was all pretty much man-made. It may not seem that way, but this entire lake that we're in right now was all hand dug pretty much for the most part by myself, using a shovel, and then sort of just making it all terraforming it, using dirt and sand, putting magma blocks, glowstone, adding in my own bridge, all of the sugarcane that surrounds it, makes it look really cool and a great feature for this world. I absolutely love it. Took me so bloody long to do, but it was so worth it, because every time I fly over my base now, it's one of the best features I ever fly across, and I just love it. And then as well as that, I've sort of led on around the back of the library over to a horses stables, where I have all different types of horses. Not that I necessarily use them by any means because I have an elytra, but knowing that I have them available to me and have their own cool separate section just means it's really fascinating when you have to go look at it. It's all colourful and stuff. And then as well as that, I've got this barn, this nice red barn, a typical sort of olden western style barn, where I've stored my cows for the cow farm, because this is a really useful one for the most part, considering you can have leather available to you at any time I want to go grind out some leather, which is really good, but also just looks really cool, just like with the pig's farm and any other farm that I've got in this base. Just looks really, really cool. So as well as that, we've then got various other areas that I expanded from this point. So effectively, once I sort of built the bridge, the library and so on, I then started going away from my base and going sort of north and heading towards a new area where I started expanding even further. So as well as having like a chicken farm, I then added in the likes of a sheep farm, which originally it was just a glass structure where there was just sort of all different types of sheep, and dyed them different colors so that I have plenty of different types of wool, because we have so many different players in this world. Having all different types of wool for different builds makes it really, really meaningful and sort of useful to have all different types available to you anytime you want them. And then eventually I built around this feature and added in my own sort of barn style building, which has to be probably one of my favorite builds that I've done in this world. And again, to remind you, if you guys want any sort of tips or guides on how I built any of these structures, or you want any sort of resource layouts or anything like that, just let me know down below in the comments, because I'm happy to help out, because I find that so many cool builds are really, they just go a long way in your sort of forever worlds, and there's just so many different types of different styles, and obviously different YouTubers will use different sort of building styles and different style of blocks and resources. But for the most part, if you guys want any sort of tips or tricks or any sort of guides, just let me know down below and I'm happy to help out. But as well as that, I've also added in this ginormous Colosseum that I'm going to expand on eventually. But in this sort of Colosseum is where we're going to have sort of duels with other players in the server, using all different types of armor, such as leather, and just trying to use wood wooden tools and just have a bit more of an enjoyable experience. Something I'm definitely going to progress and go through further in the world and further in this series. And then from there, I sort of just went into this little mountain and built a sort of a side sort of area where I put a library and a cartography section. In this library, I've actually got my own mending, unbreaking, fortune villagers, as well as cartographers, so that we can get trial chambers and ancient city maps and so on. And just having all of these things available to you guys makes it really, really helpful when you're trying to get those sort of mending books for your builds and trying to set up the perfect armor set and having all of the resources available. But then also leading out, I then created a farming section, an automated farm using villagers, which took bloody ages. I could not believe how complicated this was to understand. I watched the videos and seen how people do this, and I thought, wow, that seems pretty straightforward. It's only until you actually try and do one you realize how annoying it is to deal with villagers, to say the least, and just understanding their own language, as I was saying earlier, because for the most part there is so much more detail to them than I ever could have anticipated. And just figuring all of that out took a long time in itself, and something that I definitely did not appreciate beforehand. It's also something that I would definitely recommend doing earlier game, because I sort of did this quite late in. I already had netherite and all of that sort of stuff, which means it kind of is useless in the sense that you're not really going to maximize the benefits of these farms. However, I could not be at this stage in the world and have things like that exist and not have them in my world, so that is the main reason why I sort of put them into my own base. But for the most part, I don't really use it, and I'm not going to pretend I do. It's handy to have in case I ever do need to get those crops or whatever, but it's definitely something, if you guys are going to install them for your worlds, make sure you consider adding them in very early on. Although it does take more time and you have less resources to do so, it's just something that you're going to actually benefit from more. And then sort of moving on to that point, I sort of then expanded even further from this point, where I'm going to continue adding in more builds. I'm just trying to justify which builds and types of different structures I need or want in this base. But for the most part, I've added in a redwood tree line, which is effectively the tall spruce wood trees, which look really cool at night time when you add torches in. Considering how tall they are and just how unique they look, I love them. When I last used to play, spruce trees did not grow in 4-block tools just like jungle trees, so it looks really cool how they sort of grow now, and I really like those sort of styles, and it just looks really cool when you sort of fly by at night with an elytra and see it all lit up. I just think it looks really spooky and sort of adds a nice little vibe to the actual base itself. And then also next to that, I've sort of added in this own iron farm, which effectively was not necessary, as I was saying earlier, not really needed because of the stage I'm at in the world. But I guess you always need iron, and you don't ever sort of run out of the use of iron, considering you need it for everything in terms of builds and anvils and so on, and beacons. But I've also then added in next to that iron farm a jungle tree sort of area where I've got my own cocoa beans farm, and then also from there we've got other features that I'm going to add in around that sort of base, which are going to be really cool and also, like I said, justified for their own purpose. They're going to be unique, something that I do not have in my own sort of base and proximity of this sort of kingdom that I've built, but also it's just going to make sure that I'm actually going to use it at some point or another. Otherwise it becomes a bit useless for the most part. I don't really want to be building stuff that I'm never going to use, so I'm just trying to come up with that. So if you guys have any cool build ideas that you guys want to see in this world, please let me know down below, because I'm happy to sort of take on board any sort of advice or any sort of comments and try and implement them into this world, because for the most part this is a forever world, which means I'm hoping to actually play this for a long period of time and come back and forth to it even after I've had my sort of Minecraft stint, which for the most part this has been going on for a while now, and I'm really enjoying it. So I'm glad that I've actually built so many different types of structures, which have kept me busy. As you can see, this is all done in Minecraft survival, not on creative, so this is the first time I've ever built this many buildings on survival. Again, the last time I used to build, there was never this many different types of structures and builds and different even types of trees. There's like 9 different types of trees now, which is just ridiculous. But then all in all, I just wanted to make sure that this base looked really cool, and I was proud when every time I flew over it that I saw how much I've actually progressed. But then just going on from here, we're going to expand by adding in a nether hub into the world, a train station network, which we're going to link between me and my other friend, who we're going to sort of work on as a collaborative project. And as well as that, we obviously got the zoo, which I've been progressing really well with my original friend for the world. And then we're going to just sort of wrap up that mega project sooner or later, because we've made some real good progress on that, and I'm going to add a separate video to the channel summarizing the zoo and everything I did on the zoo, giving you tips and tricks for if you guys ever wanted to create your own, and also just as a build and base world update for the next upcoming episode. But as you can see, the world and the base itself has expanded massively, and by using so many different types of blocks and resources and decorative features everywhere makes it more unique, and as you can see, really colorful, and for the most part a really cool world to explore and also just be a part of. Something I have massively enjoyed the entire progress of this project, and again reminding you guys that the objective or the goal of this world is to complete everything there is to do in Minecraft survival, and making sure that I don't miss out on any sort of newer feature that was not back in in the day, which again, to remind you guys, I have not played Minecraft Survival in over 10 years, so there's an abundance of new content to play and explore, which is again what this series is based on, something I want to look back on and made sure that I've actually achieved and sort of gone over everything there is to do, and also whilst doing that, trying to give you guys any tips and tricks for any newer players or returning players like myself to make sure you guys are aware of all of the new and upcoming updates in this game, as well as the existing features as well. But in summary, the world has progressed very well. I'm still really enjoying the game and more so progressing towards our ultimate goal in completing Minecraft Survival. If you guys have enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe, and let me know down below if you have any comments about this video. I'm Vision SGen. I hope you enjoyed the video and the base update, and I'll see you in the next one.